Ladies and gentlemen, this is the third day of the conference, afternoon, so everyone must be tired. But I hope that after this long lunch break you gained a new strength and we can continue with our next panel entitled Politics of Memory and Competing Narratives. And traditionally I would like to start with some technical information. So those who are following our conference on Facebook or YouTube can also comment on the presentations and ask questions to the speakers. All they have to do is just to write their remarks and questions under the streaming, and we will forward them to our speakers. And I have also a sad news. Unfortunately, Siarhei Marozau had to cancel his presentation today. So in this panel, we will have only two presentations. And we will start with the first presentation delivered by Tomasz Błaszczak and Agnieszka Nowakowska. Let me introduce them. First, Tomasz Błaszczak. He is an associate professor at the Vytautas Magnus University in Kaunas. He holds a PhD in history. And his main research interests are the late modern history of the Baltic Sea region and the national processes in Central Eastern Europe. And the second presenter is Agnieszka Nowakowska, who is a sociologist and a historian at the University of Warsaw. Her main interests are memory studies and the sociology of education. And I would like to add that she also played a very important role in organizing this conference, representing the partner institution of ENRS, namely the Faculty of Sociology at the University of Warsaw. So thank you, Agnieszka, for your efforts as well and for your contribution, organizational contribution. And we are looking for your academic contribution. Right now, the title of your and Tomasz presentation is Villains or Benefactors, Images of Nobility in Lithuanian and Polish Textbooks.
Hello, everyone. So,
hello.
I will start and thank you very much for having us here, Tomasz and me. And we'd like to present our research on Lithuanian and Polish history textbooks and how they present, what is their image of Szlachta in the topics concerning 19th century. But before we start telling about the image of Szlachta in the textbooks, we would like to tell you a few words about the common history, common Lithuanian and Polish history. I'm sure that most of you is familiar with this history, but maybe for those of you who are unfamiliar, I will remind you. And it's not easy to say when it started, but we know that those Baltic and Slavic tribes were neighbors for centuries. And the first date that I would like to mention is 1385, where the personal union was started, and Lithuania, Kingdom of Poland and Great Duchy of Lithuania started to have a common king. And the next date is 16th century, 1569, when the ties became even stronger and real union was established. And the map you can see on the presentation presents the land of this enormously big country, consisted of Grand Duchy of Lithuania, of Kingdom of Poland and many other lands. And this country was called Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, or the Nobles' Republic, Republic of Szlachta. Why was it called it like that? Because of the significant role played by Szlachta in this country. It was like 10% of the population, and they were responsible for enacted laws, decided on domestic and foreign policy issues, and even they elected the king. At the same time, The personal freedom of peasants were restricted, and serfdom, pańszczyzna, increased. And this enormous country ended in 1795 when three powerful neighbors, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, divided their lands among themselves, and territory of today Lithuania and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania became part of Russia. And so we now, in the period that we are interested in the long 19th century, started in 1795 and ended in 1918, when Lithuania and Poland became separate and independent countries. And both of those countries consider themselves heirs of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So we were interested how Szlachta is depicted in textbooks used in Lithuanian and Polish schools. In the 19th century, it was as we all know, it was a period of rapid political, social, economical, and cultural changes, and it was also a very important period of when modern nations were created. And for many centuries, Poland and Lithuania created one country, and for many decades, Polish and Lithuanian historians led hectic debates about interpretation of every fact of our common history. I think that every event, every person, and has different interpretation among Lithuanian historians and among Polish historians. That's why we were so interested how they now tell about to teenagers, to students, about Szlachta in 19th century. For Polish side, Szlachta, as we heard in the last panel, is like a symbol of Polishness. It's a very, very traditional attitude towards Szlachta. And Szlachta, we can say, embodied Polishness.
Okay, and for the Lithuanian side, we can say that the period after 1569 was a time of the decline of Lithuanian culture and the Polonization of its elites, and okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
And before we start, I would like to ask the question, why is it worth analyzing history textbooks? First of all, because it's interesting, and it's interesting for me, and I really like reading the same story narrated in totally different way. But we need to learn about them. Thanks to analyzing textbook, we can learn about the memory policies of national states. And we can learn which vision of the past is accepted and promoted by the elites, by the authorities. And so, as you can see, we treat history textbooks more like memory constructs than scientific historical narration. And we ask questions about the social purpose of those narration. And we decided to analyze textbooks used in secondary school. And both in Lithuania and in Poland, the Ministry of Education must approve each textbook used in schools. And let's say it's not easy to analyze those textbooks because of the constant change of curricula implemented by governments. And in Poland, the curriculum is changed every 3 or 2 years. And the last change took place in 2024, so it was this year. And in August, the textbooks were still not ready. In September, the new year was beginning, was started, and in August, new textbooks were not ready. So we decided that we would analyze textbooks that were written according to the previous curriculum from 2022. So all in all, we analyzed 7 textbooks published in 4 printing houses used in Polish secondary schools.
So in the case of Lithuania, the curricula was reviewed after let's say quite a long time of the last revision. It was reviewed in the year 2022, starting to be implemented from the school year of 2023-24. But it was, we can say, a huge reform of the curricula, not only for history, but for the most of the subjects taught in Lithuanian school. And the main problem was actually the preparation of textbooks, because for the 1st of September 2023, most of the textbook were still not written, and it does not refer only to the subject of history, because the other subjects had the same problem, and it showed the poor condition of Lithuanian school system. And as I was analyzing 6 textbooks which were published by this summer. For the period that we were analyzing, they are already published. It contains the level 9 of Lithuanian school system, and which covers the 19th century. But the topics that refers to our analysis belongs as well to the component of 11th and 12th grade. And for example, for grade 12, we still have no single textbook published by today, and it contains a block of social history, which for analyzing the image of nobility, which should be crucial, because we were able to analyze only the path for let's say political history, some topics from cultural history, but those 11th and 12th grade that goes deeply to the cultural history and social history are still not written, and according to the curricula, they should contain topics that will be crucial for our analysis. And when you speak to the history teachers in Lithuania, all of them are using their own materials. No one is sticking to the textbook. So on one hand, they were prepared for implementation of the new curricula, because they were simply using their own materials, ideas, and in their content of teaching.
Okay, so Can we go to another slide? And so if we go to the merits now, all Polish textbooks must follow the curriculum, and the curriculum is quite detailed. So they analyze the same events, and you can see listed them roughly on the slide. And the most important topics from 19th century are the so-called National Liberation Uprising, particularly the November Uprising of 1830 and the January Uprising of 1833. There are also lessons on the Springtime of Nations in 1848. Students have many lessons on the national policies of Prussia, Russia, and Austria, those three countries that partitioned the Commonwealth among themselves. And the authors of the textbooks are mainly interested in if Poles could develop their national identity living in those three countries, or if it was difficult or maybe prohibited. So students have also a few lessons concerning the so-called peasant issues and the emancipation of peasants. And the important topic, but not so important and as those uprisings, is the Industrial Revolution and the social changes associated with the revolution.
Yeah, in the Lithuanian curricula is written in similar degree of detail. The main difference is the greater integration of topics on Lithuanian history within the universal history, at least on the level of curricula, but those textbooks that were analyzed, we can say that maybe around 60% of topics refer to the universal history, while around 40% to the Lithuanian history. They are merging on different levels. Sometimes those blocks are separated. Sometimes they are merged, and the curricula pays great attention to the questions of heritage and cultural historical memory. And we can say that the reform of 2022 adding this component of heritage and cultural historical memory was one of the most important points of the reform. Not only when we talk about history, but like Lithuanian language and other subjects. So we can say that the memory of Polish and Lithuanian Commonwealth and its impact on the development of Lithuanian national movements are one of the most important problems in the heritage of Lithuania. So as well, the role of noble manners is stressed there as well. And what as well a novelty in Lithuanian textbook is the link between historical context and the present day. We can find parallels between like French Revolution and contemporary protests in France, or the image of Russia from 19th century as a liberator of nations when we talk about Europe in 19th century, and nowadays war in Ukraine, and comparison of those two images. Okay.
Okay, so we know the facts that students learn, and now I would like to present something that I call the threads of narrations. In my opinion, there in Polish textbooks we can identify two threads of narration. when it comes to the history of the 19th century. And first of all, the first one is the formation of the modern Polish nation, and the second one is the restoration of Polish statehood. So, reading and analyzing those textbooks, we can learn that the goal of the 19th century history for Poland was to regain its independence and to create the modern Polish nation. And sometimes it's even funny because when we read about serfdom and the modernization and emancipation of peasants, we can read that it was necessary for peasants to be emancipated to become members of Polish nation. Or the abolishing serfdom was crucial for developing their national identity. In one set of textbooks printed by wydawnictwa szkolne i pedagogiczne, we can identify the third thread. I called it the modernization. The narration in these textbooks is less nationalistic and more nuanced, and the author describes social as economic changes as such, not as fulfilling a big nationalistic plan with its aim as a creation of modern nationality or creating the independent state.
Okay, so as we talk about the main narrative threads in Lithuanian history textbook, as well we have the formation of modern Lithuanian nation and social, and here it's connected with a social change, and we can say that the story of noblemen in Lithuanian textbook ends with the uprising of 1863. After the repressions, the deportations, the Polish gentry or Lithuanian gentry, identifying themselves as Polish gentry, lost its position in the country, replaced by Russian colonists, and then the story of the Lithuanian national revival of peasant character starts, and the nobility themes in the textbook covering late 19th century are not very visible, but in some cases of like modernization of Lithuania, the delayed industrial revolution in Lithuania, they are appearing, and the modernization of the country is shown as well as the life of the gentry and townspeople, but not in every case. Sometimes it's balanced with the modernization of Lithuanian villages and rural areas, but sometimes as well the voice of noblemen are heard in this narrative.
Okay, it seems impossible to tell the history of so-called Polish land in the 19th century without mentioning Szlachta. They are portrayed as active, influential group. Members of this group has their own name, have their own names, surnames, images. We can read many biographical notes presenting Szlachta. Other social classes typically appear as passive, anonymous groups. For example, peasants are depicted as a group that does not influence social reality at all. And Szlachta is portrayed as an active group in two spheres, economic and political. And when discussing the nobility as an economic group, the authors highlight the internal diversity within this group. However, when the authors begin to show their political attitude, substitutes. The nobility become suddenly monolith. All of them strive for independence, and the only thing that differentiates them is the method of regaining the independence. And okay, no, you can stay here. And textbooks authors often substitute the word Poles for the word Szlachta. So we can hear that someone is Szlachta, or someone a member of Szlachta group, or someone is member of Poles. And they don't explain to students what they mean by the term Pole when they use it in the context of the early 19th century. In the presentation, we can see two quotations from the textbooks, and we can assume that it was not the peasant or the bourgeoisie who hoped for this greater political independence. The political ambitions could be expressed by the nobility. So we can say that the nobility becomes the representative of the actions and interests of all Poles, and the textbooks present history from the perspective of the nobility, and the nobility is depicted as Poles per se. Poles and nobility is the same group in the textbooks.
So in Lithuanian case, we have strict division between the nobles and the peasants, and Lithuanian revival, let's say, in the very beginning of 19th century, as is shown of the noble character after the January uprising of the peasant character, but there are a few textbooks, especially one textbook which deals with this problem of different social stratas and their influence on Lithuanian national revival, of formation of modern Lithuanian nation. And what should be stressed, that it's the only textbook which has as well its Polish version, because there are Polish schools in Lithuania in which the Polish textbook, but those published in Lithuania are being used, and this textbook has its Polish version, but it's only the translation from Lithuania. There are no separate topics, or the narration is the same, but only translated into Polish. But we can say that those textbooks show a bit different perspective, showing this engagement of noblemen in 19th century Lithuania on a greater level. And going to the conclusions, we can say that in Poland, narrative is stressed on the history of Poland, in Lithuania on Lithuanian and universal history more than Lithuanian history. Main hero of the Polish narrative are nobles, in Lithuania peasants, but with a knowledge of the legacy of the nobility. And as a third, our conclusion, that textbooks do not present other countries' perspective on common history. However, there are some attempts in Lithuania to do so.
Ačiū.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you so much. We know that history can be narrated from very heterogeneous perspectives, and here we saw an example when history is taught in very different ways. However, we can also find some common patterns, I think. Our next and last presenter today is Rafał Slaski. He's a chairman of Zofia and Jan Włodek Foundation and the chairman of the Polish Gentry Association in Krakow. He's an organizer of many social and educational projects, the title of his presentation is Educational Activities Restoring Knowledge about History and Achievements of Polish Landowners. Please.
Thank you for inviting me for this conference. I'm trying to...
Probably you have to wait a second.
Okay. So anyway, waiting for the slide. Between 1939 and 1945, landed gentry in Poland was expelled. They were expelled from their mansions, from their land, from the society, and from the memory. Some were killed, all were deprived their fortune. It was done by Germans, by Russians, and finished off by the communists. Official teaching about the role of the landowners in the society was very negative or silent till Poland has restored democracy in the end of 20th century. In the result, there is a lack of knowledge about the fate of gentry among young generation. There are still too few organizations who are trying to fill this gap in education. Among them is Polish Gentry Association in Kraków and Zofia and Jan Włodek Foundation. Both are active in restoring knowledge about gentry's history, tradition, achievements, and ethos. In 2014, Polish Gentry Association in Kraków, in cooperation with Institute of National Remembrance, have started a historical competition for schools. Every year, there is a different topic connected with gentry presence in Polish history. Over the years, many remarkable works were supplied by pupils. They are discovering history of local landowners, local manors, or palaces. They learn their fate and realize their responsibility to continue their work, to be patriotic, to be engaged for the sake of the others and the society. This is the purpose of our contest. The Włodek Foundation has become a co-organizer of this nationwide competition. It also has other educational activities with similar aims. High school students are taught how to read culture codes of Polish and Lithuanian gentry. Series of lectures, noble landowner traditions, ethos, history, achievements are intended to educate wide audiences. Filming and collecting interviews with witnesses of history of the landed gentry is also dedicated to fill the gap in the knowledge of the role of the social class in the history. Memory of the gentry is changing over time. In the 60s and 70s, I have known many expelled from their manors in the Lesser Poland, where I live. Most of them kept very good relationships with the peasants who were working for them before the war or who were growing up together with them. Despite the law prohibiting pre-war owner to visit their property vicinities, which is still in law existing in Poland, in writing, they were taking care of family tombs. They were met by local peasants eager to describe how badly their properties are taken care by the communists. Local population has lost employers, getting in return small pieces of land that did not allow them to become economically feasible in general. Moreover, they had to pay for the obtained land. In these dark times, peasants were helping their former employees, supplying them with food from their farms. Often, the relationships were hearty. Peasants understood that injustice was done. These remarks are about gentry, not necessarily about aristocracy. We're talking about the differences in Poland. Their relationship with peasants, the aristocracy relationships with peasants could be more distant. Many were not directly involved in agricultural activities. They were not always present in the villages. Over the years, generations that knew each other before the war leaves, and emotions, positive or negative, disappear. For the young ones, there are only stories from grandparents, remains of mansions, farm buildings, tombs, and funded by the nobility churches or schools. But the young generation is curious. Who has lived in these buildings? What did they do? Why they are not present in the village now? And this curiosity helps to engage pupils in the contest 20th century landed gentry. In the 10 years of the 20th century landed gentry competition for schools, we have covered several topics. Contest titles, each year is a different title, included To Arms, Attitudes and Fates of the Landed Gentry during World War II, Revenge for the Independence, Landowners, Victims of Two Aggressors, In the Service of Independence, Activity of the Nobility for the State and Society in the 20 years between the wars, Landed Gentry as Neighbors, Culture, Forming Role of the Polish Manors between the wars, Outstanding Landowners in the interwar period, Economic, Culture, Science, Diplomacy, or Sentence on the Landed Gentry, 80 years from the communist-led reform, which was the last competition. Information about roles and input of Polish gentry in 20th century was not present in schools throughout the communist period and unfortunately is not present now as well. What's worse, now with the extreme left in power, role models like coming from the landowners, Captain Witold Pilecki, are withdrawn from the museums and school programs. Moral legacy of the landed gentry may be jeopardized again. The biggest interest in our competition we have received from the small towns and villages where there are existing remains of mansions, as I told you before, farm buildings and funded by the landowners, schools, churches, fire stations. Places where memory of former owners is still alive, where the graves are taken care for, where older generations still can tell stories, how it was, where landowners' descendants are still in touch with the local communities. In the first 2 years, 2014-15, we have organized competition in Lesser Poland Voivodeship. In 2016, the competition became nationwide. Since then, we have participants from the whole country. For the 10 years we organized this contest, we have had circa 1,000 participants from 200 schools from the whole country. The regions where our competition did not become widely popular are the regained lands and big cities like Warsaw or Wrocław. The key to success is the effort put in popularization and support of the contest participants. In some big cities like Kraków, Poznań, Lublin, and Rzeszów, this competition is popular thanks to the activity of local branches of Polish Gentry and Association and Institute of National Remembrance. To make this activity a successful one, we organize lectures and workshops for students and for teachers. We contact participants with witnesses of history, members of landed gentry families, who are able to tell stories about their ancestors and who can share documents and photographs that they have in their homes. We organize workshops, how to make interviews and films, how to access and use archives. We share bibliography. Now I will show you in the... We share bibliography developed by Maciej Rydel, the only bibliography on landowners. And every year at the award ceremony we give prizes, mainly books on the 20th century gentry history. Since the COVID, we record lectures and workshops and make them available online. The contest finals are organized in historic places mansions that either have remained in the hands of prior owners, which is very rare, or their descendants who were able to reclaim these properties, usually buying back their property from the government. This way, we are able to show participants these places and tell them their story. The hosts that were kind to invite us to their mansions in recent years include Antoni and Elżbieta Potoccy in Olsza, in Kraków, Piotr and Agnieszka Rozwadowscy in Hucisko, near Kraków, and Michał and Marta Smoczyńscy in Goszyce, also near Kraków. On the pictures you see the final of the competition when we have students coming from all over the Poland. We are examining them and then giving awards. Another activity we organized during the finals are participants' visits to museums which were established by nobility, or their message and history are based on Gentry's tradition. Our contest is both for older pupils from the grammar schools and for the high school students as well. We have two categories of competition: written and multimedia. At the beginning, internet was the main source of pupils' work. Now, thanks to the effort of growing number of teachers who are involved in mentoring students, works are based on more information sources. Over the years, we have received works including interviews with people remembering pre-war, war, and communist times. Some pupils made wonderful films making scenes from historical times using text from the memoirs or other archives. They have documented their work with pictures which they have made by themselves, or they have tracked down in the libraries or in the private collections. To encourage pupils to reach into the archives, to make films or to make interviews, we support them every year with workshops and lectures, as I have mentioned before. Through the contest, participants learn history of their little homeland. They learn about people who have lived next door 8 years ago, who were role models for running farms, serving society, fighting for their country, and who in the end were deprived of their property, their homes, their history. Often the persons who are heroes of pupil studies become the role models for them. Certainly it makes them more consciousness about responsibilities to their own homeland. Starting this year, some of the papers that were winning this competition in previous years will be published in Landowners News, the publication of Polish Gentry Association, and this fall, the first two will be published there, and we are hoping to continue this over next years. In the Włodek Foundation series Witness of History of the Landed Gentry, we record memories of gentry families about their homes, their weekdays and holidays, their work and customs, their education, and the relationship with peasants. We are recording stories on economic activities, investment, charitable activities, underground support during Second World War, like Cultivation and Shield, secret landowner organization supporting the Home Army, or saving and hiding Jews. We are interested in the way Polish landed gentry were expelled from their homes by Germans, by Russians, by communists. How they have survived in post-war time, and how they were persecuted and excluded from the society. We are looking for information about what values and customs from their past have survived till now. We collect stories about their fate. These films are intended to serve as documentation for filmmakers, writers, or simply for family members. We are trying to fill this white spot in the Polish history. Serious popularizing lectures, those are also pictures from making the interviews. Series of popularizing lectures, noble landowner traditions, ethos, history, achievements serve the same purpose. They are organized at the Włodek Foundation headquarters, and they are available on the Foundation YouTube channel. Lectures are conducted by outstanding historians, art historians, renowned subject experts like Professor Jan Ostrowski, Andrzej Nowak, Marian Wolski, or Tomasz Kargol. Subjects include Old Polish gentry, costumes, old titles, offices, manor houses, architecture and functions, genealogy, economy. It helps white audiences to understand cultural codes they find in literature and in everyday language. It makes them appreciate culture that has violently disappeared. It helps them understand need to cultivate this important heritage. The big difference between landed gentry remembrance between Western and Eastern Europe is that in Poland this social class had a judgment to be eliminated physically and from memory by all oppressors since 1939, Germans, Russians, and communists. As I have repeatedly mentioned, the above listed activities are aimed to bring back from oblivion landed gentry, patriotic merits, agricultural achievements, merits in culture and education. As written in the preamble to the Włodek Foundation statute, our aims are to cultivate landed gentry traditions such as service to the country, interest in public affairs, cooperation with the church, love of nature, showing respect to people of all classes and nationalities, and especially men showing respect for women. Propagation of these virtues through the role models from our past is the best way to educate young people about their responsibilities to the society. Let it be the inheritance from landed gentry. If you're interested to read more about Włodek Foundation or about our competition for schools, I have two publications here, and feel free to take them home. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation and also for perfectly matching our time frames. And now I would like to kindly introduce Joanna Wawrzyniak, who will comment on these presentations. She's an associate professor of sociology and the director of the Center for Research on Social Memory at the University of Warsaw. And I would like to also underline that she is one of the initiators of Genealogies of Memory project, and it means that she's involved in this annual conferences from the very beginning. So thank you for that, and now the floor is yours.
I don't know how can does it work? Yes, yes, I do. Yeah, thank you so much for these two very interesting presentations. And I just would like to start with apologizing that I couldn't be with you for the entire conference, but I had just a parallel project, and that was just very difficult to balance them together. So I am the very last addition to that panel, I also have to say, because my colleague couldn't come, so I replacing him. So
That's not true, because I was the last one.
Yeah, you were there. Yeah. So I'm not Michał Łuczewski, as you have heard. I'm Joanna Wawrzyniak, and I'm kind of replacing him. But my comment might not be that developed as it should be, because I had a chance to read the papers only yesterday. But let me perhaps start with my perspective, because that, as you've already heard, I'm a memory scholar. So I'm basically, in my work, I'm interested in how the past is used in the present, by whom and for what purposes. And that was also the perspective from which I read and listened to both of these papers. And they both give us quite an interesting view on memory and education from two perspectives. One is, I would say, more top-down, as the school textbooks are. The kind of the representations of the official memory of that what is being assumed kind of the official memory of the state, and presented to the students to get them kind of socialized in some kind of the official, or whatever the kind of the history, kind of the narrative we want them to have and share as a generation. And the other one is a bottom-up perspective of someone whom, in our memory studies, let's say, terminology, we would call memory activism, right? Of trying to activate some kind of the memories to make them visible in the public. Those two papers, they also differ in the genre, right? Because we have two academic scholars who are doing one more paper in their life, and representative of the NGO, who is then the founder of the NGO, which is interested in making some kind of the claims about the past. So I will start with the first presentation, and trying to mention a few points which I think are really valuable moments of your paper, and then ask several questions to your paper, and then I'll come to yours, and then I also have the last question, which is to all of you. So what I found really interesting is that you actually say that there was no previous work on an academic paper on a comparative paper on the representation of the nobility in the Polish-Lithuanian textbook, which is already an interesting discovery. So from what you've been saying, I do understand that those representations differ. They differ in regards to temporalities, which is really interesting. So that there is a different temporality of representing the history of the gentry in the Polish textbooks, and a different one in the Lithuanian one. Slightly, they differ in terms of agencies, like who were those noble people and the gentry. But in the Polish case, the nobility plays mainly the role of the nation state builders, so they are kind of the representative of the nation state as such. And in the Lithuanian case, the picture is much more ambiguous, what makes it interesting. So there is an essential, as far as I understand, and there is this essential statement that that's the peasantry, which is the essence of the Lithuanian nation. But still, there is some cultural heritage of the gentry which is still to be preserved. At the same time, what you were saying is that the Lithuanian narrative is much more universal, and I just want to go back to that point in a moment. What I think I would, if I was to read your paper later on, and if you had more time, what I would like to learn more is more about the context. So it's more about the context of the history education in both countries after the 1989, and about the debates about how to represent the entangled history of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in both countries. And you are both very well familiar with those discussions, but I think the reader of that paper would really like to know it. So you contextualize that. And then how actually the current curricula, because they change, right? And the current textbook fit to those debates, right? So what changes do they make? So that's about the context, like, and also who are the main agents of those debates, like who are those people, the milieus, and so on, who advocate for the change and why, and who are the authors of those textbooks, like what are their positionalities. Then, of course, I would like to know a little bit more about your methodology. Like, so how you actually, why did you choose that and not something else? Like, so how you actually do that? Then what I think it would be like super interesting for the paper, it's not only about the narrative, but also about the politics of the images of both of these books, because you've been showing some of the images in your PowerPoint, but you were not focusing and you didn't focus on the analysis. But then there are some choices the authors of the textbooks make. And that would be like really interesting to have some sort of the methodology of the analysis and including that into your book. Also, I would say the politics of choosing personalities who are presented in the textbook, because I mean the nobility, but then from time to time you just see a person with a name and a last name, and who is it and why and how do they differ, right? And what that choice can say about the representation of that. So. So that's, and then finally I would be also interested in what kind of the assignments to students they give, like, so how do they actually think, how do they actually want to activate that historical knowledge with students? Because after all, the question is like, who cares? Like, I'm sorry to say that, like the students, they're not necessarily interested in the 19th century or like or the previous of the history. Some of them are not, and that what stays with them, it might be that part of the knowledge which is in some or other way activated, in the sense that they are asked to make some kind of the assignments, and what kind of the assignments are being asked in both cases. And this is actually like just a link with the previous research of Agnieszka Nowakowska, which I'm aware of, and maybe you are not. That Agnieszka, a few years ago, she spent a considerable time in the classrooms, trying to see what are the topics the teachers actually choose from the textbook. Like, how do they speak to the students, and what is the interaction in the class? And it was interesting for me to read that of your work, because then you might really point that it's not really the textbooks that matters, but the actual situation, the interaction in the class, and the teacher choice, like how to teach, matters. So I would be, of course, that's too much, for that chapter, but I would like to hear your thoughts about that, especially that you did spend some time with a different research question, but still seeing how that topic is being taught. So that's my comment to the first paper, and coming to the second one. I will start with the first, a little bit tricky question, which is because from Agnieszka presentations, like, we have heard that actually the Polish nobility is quite present, like in the history education, that they, at least in the history textbook, that they are there. Your kind of the main point is that we need this kind of the memory activism, and especially the work with students, because the students know so little about that history. So I just would like to ask you, I mean, if you see a tension, or what is your reading of the textbook and what you see missing there. Then what I think is like absolutely fascinating is an actual student work. Like, what does, when you have those contests, first the question to you, how are the questions phrased? So what the students are being asked actually to do, and what do they present? Like, so what are their choices? What is their actual, the content of their work? did you have any feedback to that program from the teachers and from the students? Do they have any comments? Do they want you to do, I don't know, more of some kind of the topics or some other kind of the topics? So, if you could just tell us a little bit more how it is being organized, what is in the actual content, what are the topics which students choose, what is the teachers' reaction, what are the teachers' reactions to that? I think that would give us more sense of how actually that project develops. And finally, question to all of you. Mm-hmm. You all use the dichotomy landowners, peasants. And if there was no one else, there was a clear dichotomy, I'm saying, in both of your talks between landowners and peasants. Right? And of course, there were different social groups, in early modernity, 19th century, and also in the interwar period. So relations of the nobility with Jews, with the bourgeoisie, and so on. So I'm just asking, both of you, how do you see it? Because it is like that in your textbook, or it is because you kind of chose to present it like this? And the question to you, when the students are engaged and when they're being asked to do those projects, are they mainly asked to concentrate on the landowner's perspective, or are they also asked to see how other social groups have seen landowners of the time? And I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very important feedback. Mm-hmm. And excellent remarks. And now I would like to first give the opportunity to Tomasz and Agnieszka to reflect on that, and then Rafał.
So thank you very much for your remarks. And we were thinking about writing a paper on the research of the textbooks, and your remarks will be very useful, and we will definitely use them. So when maybe I will focus on the changes that were made in textbooks over the time, and who were the activists, who were the actors that changed the textbooks. There was the special commission, textbooks commission, Polish-Lithuanian commission, and if I would like to describe in one word the effect of the work of this commission, it was the colonization of the textbooks, because in Polish textbooks in 90s there was this tendency of calling the Commonwealth Poland. So in many maps, in many textbooks, there were no Commonwealth, there was no this Rzeczpospolita Obojga Narodów name, but the students learned that was Poland. So Lithuania, today Belarus, today Ukraine, every part of this country was Poland. And that was changed. Definitely the students in Poland learned that only some part of this huge country was Poland, but we are here in Poland, we are still so much focused on our perspective that students they don't know nothing about perspective, Lithuanian, Belarusian or Ukrainian perspective, because only Polish perspective on the Commonwealth is important enough to be said at school. And the question about activating students, it's deeply sad, because the only thing that, in my opinion, that activates them is the perspective of the exam, the final exam at school. So they have to learn all those dates, surnames, and battles because of the final exam of high school. And I don't know how it is in Lithuanian. One sentence, sorry, about those other groups. So there, of course, there are stoned people that they are not important. There are special chapters about minorities, and we can read about Jews, for example, and about the Jewish culture in the 19th century. But the main hero of the textbooks are is Polish nobility, Polish szlachta, and we have some special chapters about other groups.
Yes, so about the activization. I think that because of that change of including that file of historical cultural memory into the textbooks, the students are given quite a lot of tasks to do. They are simply, I would say that there is one textbook which is clearly sending the students outside to find the heritage, find the manors, for example, somewhere in the neighborhood, and to learn something more about that. So maybe I don't have such a perspective as Agnieszka, who is researching the textbooks for ages, but we are analyzing those ones which are being used now, and I can see this switch into memory and activization of the students through those tasks connected with the heritage, both on national and local, regional level. So of course, it should be another research made on the effects of those activities, because we are analyzing only the narratives of the textbooks. There are new textbooks being used in schools only for a year or start to being used only now. So, but yes, the perspective of the further research is quite interesting. The current curricula and the authors, I would say that in the case of Lithuania, only the one textbook is written entirely by one person, who is a scholar, associate professor at one of the universities, and a teacher as well. And the other ones have quite a lot of authors, and it's a mix between academia and teachers' practice. And there are quite of people who are doing both. What else?
Politics of images, for example. Politics of images. Representative figures.
Yeah, that's the thing that we have to admit that we were not analyzing the images. And let's say when we talk about but it's another say plot of our research, because there are of course quite a lot of personalities that appear in both countries, like Piłsudski or Narutowicz, Polish president of Lithuanian origin, and of course Mickiewicz and all the Vilnius Romanticism that. We can find even pictures that will show the same portraits of Mickiewicz in both
textbooks. And in Polish textbooks, there are only two peasants that have name and surname. It's Michał Trzymała, the victim of Prussian policy, and Jakub Szela, the hero of Rabacja Galicyjska, that it was a manslaughter, nobles manslaughter. But, so we have only two peasant people that have faces. The other is the group is anonymous, totally anonymous.
Thank you, Rafał.
The first question was about existence of nobility in the school books. There is a lot about aristocracy, not much about nobility.
Okay.
And there are huge differences between those two in Poland, which is different, as we have heard today, in different countries. But we, in our competition, we concentrate on the history of 20th century and interwar period, and there is no much about economic crisis, about agricultural reforms that were that they were ongoing during this time. There is nothing about what was done during the war, underground army, and cultivation and shield, the organization that has supported underground army. Hardly anybody knows about those activities. There are many reasons for that, but we would like to bring some light to this. The other question was about how we examine the students during the competition. After the qualification for the finals, we have a 3-person jury that didn't read or didn't see the work of the student. So if I have read and judged the works from Lesser Poland, I am not taking part in this examining. So we are examining them, asking them to because the works are either in writing or multimedia. So now they have to describe their work in words. And the questions that we pose to them after this presentation, it's checking if it was a copy-paste work or they did some reading and they know a lot about the subject. And we are every year we are impressed. Generally, we are impressed how much reading, how much knowledge they have. And this is a huge work done by teachers, I'm sure, also, who help them and lead them. And we do have a lot of feedback from teachers. Usually the feedback is that they are calling us, the organizers, long before the next edition is starting, when it will start, and we want to participate again. As far as topics, subjects, they are always just as general as we can do, and they are about the Gentry, but the perspective that they are from which they are writing or making these presentations, we have no. We leave them freedom. We're just trying to give them tools, so those workshops and how to use archives, how to make a film, how to those are or if they need to the contact to the witness of history, but sometimes they find witnesses of history locally, not from Gentry, but from their grandmothers or grandfathers, and they do that as well. So we leave them completely up to them what perspective they. But the subject. I have mentioned the subject. You were asking about the subjects, but I have listed them. The last subject this year, of course, was a sentence on the landed gentry 80 years from the communism land reform, and the reason was, but we have a round date, so that was the last one. But landed gentry as neighbors, so we are trying to form the subjects so they are interested for the students, and they can find materials, sources to write about this. Yes, in some works they do describe relations with the peasants, with the local people. Some do, some do not, depending the topic. But it exists. But we are not asking this question explicitly. Did I cover all the questions?
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Well, I would have some follow-up questions, but I think it's time for the audience to ask questions.
Yes, this is exactly what I wanted to suggest. We have still a little time, so if you have questions, I see 2 hands raised up there.
Okay. I have a question to Rafał Slaski. Well, it's evident that the competition is a great success, as it's a nationwide competition. And I have 2 practical questions. First is whether whether state authorities like Kuratorium Oświaty and educational institutions responsible for that, whether they put this competition on this famous list of those competitions who give the extra points in high school recruitment. And if so, how you persuade them to do so? Because it's of course it's another it's important factor. And another very practical question: are those interviews, recorded, filmed interviews, are archived, and if so, by whom? Perhaps Institute of National Remembrance or the Foundation, and if so, if they are available or will be available to researchers, because even though they are the product of grammar school students, they are the documents of this topic and of our time. And one short question to perhaps more to Tomasz. Apart from the textbooks, do you know any other sources that feed the curiosity of those who are interested in history? Alternative sources like YouTube channels, or I don't know, Instagram influencers in Lithuania who would add to this, would be the alternative source of knowledge or entertainment even, or create an alternative memory. Thank you.
And now Vladimir, please, if you would like to ask questions. But speak into the microphone, please.
I was just two single questions for Tomasz. Błaszczak from Vytautas Magnus University in Kovno. First of all, I would like to ask you, who of former Lithuanian aristocracy, who of former Lithuanian nobility still holds a spectacular place in Lithuanian textbooks? Who, namely? what houses are represented in contemporary Lithuanian textbooks? A second question, why they occupy such a prominent place in textbooks? Maybe nobles, rebellions, rebels like Glinsky, or Gestolts, or maybe Dukes of Golshany or Giedroyci. Thanks a lot for your answer. That's all. Merci.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? If not, I would add my own one to Agnieszka and Tomasz, because you mentioned one more question, but I will finish it and then I will give you the word. So you mentioned about a textbook, Lithuanian textbook, which was translated into Polish, as far as I remember. And I'm wondering if there was any initiative in the past to create a common Polish-Lithuanian textbook, which can be used in both countries. As far as I know, a few years ago, there was an initiative to create such kind of textbook in German and Polish, covering German and Polish history, a common textbook. Because I think that if it would have been such kind of initiative, you could learn a lot about the challenges, how to create something common. Yeah, so that's my question. And
yes, well, the question, the subject of education, of course, is very important. So, but look, to add to that what you were saying about Polish books, in the Polish textbooks for secondary school, there is no single word about 1994-95, when Gentry was expelled, was kicked out of their manors. There's no single word. I've checked it. Maybe if you know something else, please correct me. So generally, education in the schools and at the universities about this subject, except of this what you were telling about, it's true that the uprising and so on. This is important thing. So, and there is a book which is used as well in the secondary school. It's not the official textbook, but a book by Professor, I will merciful to his name. He hasn't mentioned even this period of 34, 35, that something was happening there. So this is a real problem to tackle. Because my biography was mentioned, so if maybe it's useful for some of you, it's 1,400 books, which is in this list, both scientific books, memoirs, heraldry, and so on, which you can have on the internet from Polish Gentry Association main page, and Włodek Foundation as well. Thank you very much.
thank you so much. So I suggest to answer the questions. Yeah, Rafał, could you start it?
Okay. The first question was about involvement of state authorities, curatoria. Yes, we work with curatoria, state authorities. It's not always successful. In different voivodeships, it depends what the relationship we are able to get into. I mean either the representatives of Polish Gentry Association or IPN. So in Kraków, for instance, we work with them. They announced our competition every year. We get points the students get points. There were years that we were also cooperating with some universities and getting the entrance to the history studies for the high school students. Now it's quite easy to get to universities, so there is no much need and interest in that. But But as far as points, we are trying to fight for this because it is important reason for many students, for many pupils to participate. Availability of the interviews that we are doing them to serve the scientists and to make them available. That's the objective. If you go on our YouTube, Włodek Foundation YouTube, you can see small, like 2 minutes samples of those interviews. At some point, we should have the keywords. It's our foundation. We are still growing and establishing the way we work. But yes, you can contact us and we make them available for the for scientific work, and we will be trying to make it easier to find what you need in the future.
Thank you, Agnieszka and Tomasz.
So, answering to your question, the relationship, but I don't know how to start, but it was very difficult after the 1990 to speak about our common history, and there are very famous neighbors, surnames of a Lithuanian historian who started telling about the common history, and then there were meetings of historians, the conferences started to be organized, but it's difficult to compare relationship between German and Polish historian and Polish and Lithuanian historians. There were those relationship between Lithuanian and Polish historian were much more hard, and now they are in good conditions, but maybe in a few years we will be ready to write these common textbooks. Now we need to trust each other, like learn how to trust that we have a good will to write truth about common history. It's the history of the relationship between historian from Poland and Lithuania needs to be described in a new book. It's a subject for very interesting research. So I hope in a few years there will be this idea of writing the common textbook. When it comes to your question, as far as I understood, you were telling about the 20th century history, and we covered the topic of 19th century. Maybe that's the reason we didn't tell nothing about the 30s in the 20th century. But in the textbooks concerning 19th century, there is a lot about suffering. Szlachta's suffering, being expelled, losing their land, and being sent to Siberia, and students really learn a lot about this suffers by Szlachta's sufferings. And I know that there are a lot of publications about history of Szlachta in Poland or in Lithuania, but we didn't find the analysis that compared the situation in textbooks in Lithuania and in Poland, and that was surprising because this topic is so obvious to be analyzed that we were like, oh my, how is it possible that it wasn't analyzed before us?
Okay, I would add on the common Polish-Lithuanian textbook. I think that the first thing what should be done is common Polish-Lithuanian synthesis of
Yeah, that's
of
true.
Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and then starting from that we can think about writing common textbooks, and those plans in Lublin, for example, at the end of 20th century, they were developed to some point, but actually never happened. So I think that's the first thing that should be done, and from that point we can think about textbooks. As for the alternative sources, the textbook in Lithuanian education system is only one of the sources of the knowledge. Those textbooks are usually contains QR codes that are sending pupils to the content in the internet on various educational platforms. Of course, it's as well under the control of the agency for the education, and of course several platforms. And several people developed some kind of channels for students. One of my colleagues, she's now working in the museum. She has a TikTok channel which is very popular, and we can say that through her TikTok channel, she became one of the celebrities in the Lithuanian media. I would say that Agnieszka had the chance to meet her. So I think that it's the method of popularization, and of course an alternative source of knowledge produced for the kids in the way they want to see it. As for the houses, of course, we are talking only about 19th century. If we were not analyzing for this paper the whole history of Lithuania, so as we are talking about 19th century, Tyszkiewicz and Ogińscy would be the mostly represented in Lithuanian textbook, I would say. But I would need a separate at least 5 minutes to check it. If we are talking about the particular houses.
What else?
Houses, alternatives.
And
I think
Christina,
that we are slowly running out of time. So the last words.
Oh, it's okay.
But actually, we have another comment online.
Okay, so let's hear.
Okay, right now? Yeah, perfect. So it came from Jan Wasiewicz. Thank you again for a very interesting presentation. I would have rather a comment than a question to Rafał Slaski's presentation. While acknowledging the tragedy of Polish landed gentry after 1939, and especially after 1944, and also acknowledging the undeniable contributions of the gentry to Polish culture, I would like to point out that the presenting the history and heritage of Polish landed gentry to young Polish pupils, avoiding the reference to serfdom system and the crucial role played in it by the Polish gentry, as well as their resistance to the land reform in the interwar period, seems to be instilling in them distorted one-sided picture. This is an impression which I got from your presentation, if only we look at the topics proposals to students. Thank you.
Okay, so would you like to react on this last comment? I think yes. If you would like to react.
there was no serfdom in between the wars. I don't know about this system. It was a long time ago, so why should we refer to that? And during the communist times, the history was written only one-sided, excluding the history and the expelling of nobility. So it didn't exist. So that's why we're trying to bring this, to fill this gap.
Thank you very much.
And the reforms, they were done during between the wars, and they were going on, and they were done in the proper way, which was not the case in '44.
Okay, thank you very much once again. We are running out of time, so let's finish this official part of our panel. Once again, thank you so much for these very interesting presentations and for the comments and remarks as well. And enjoy the coffee break, which will last about 20 minutes now. Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have those publications.